If you guys need coins for the new Fut birthday promo, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're very fast, they're very cheap, they're very reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I'm going to be showing you some custom tactics and player instructions, one of the best aggressive attacking formations in FIFA 23, that being the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow. Now just before we get into today's video guys, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, as that does really help me out with the YouTube search algorithm. Also subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, let's get right into today's video. So starting off with the custom tactics guys, for the defensive style, as always I like to have this on balanced. This is because it gives you the best control over your defense, where you're able to press when you need to press, and you're also able to drop off and be that more conservative when you need to be. So it does just give you the very much needed balance. Moving on to the defensive width guys, I like to use this on 40 so we can primarily stay in a narrow shape to block all those passes and runs through the middle, but at the same time we still have that natural coverage of the wide areas to reach out to the wings when we need to. Now moving on to the depth guys, because I use this as one of my more aggressive formations, I like to use the depth on quite a high setting in 65. This is so we can win the ball higher up the pitch and really start those quick attacks. I don't like to up it all the way though, because obviously you'll get through balled very easily, so I kind of just keep it on 65 so we can just move it a little bit further back to avoid those through balls. But yeah, it's important not to have this depth too low, otherwise you're just going to get pinned back all the time and it's not going to be a fun time. Now moving on to build up play guys, I know I usually say to use balance, but with this formation I've really been enjoying using fast build up. This is just because it goes hand in hand with the higher depth, so when we win the ball back the players are going to be moving a lot quicker to create those chances, and it's just really fun for creating like lots of chances and scoring many goals. And it has been working quite well with this formation because there's lots of little triangles that you can play, and it works quite well with those narrow formations. Moving on to chance creation guys, I do like using direct passing because it makes your attackers move in the correct ways. It also makes them bunch up against the defenders, so you're able to do like the really overpowered isolation plays, and they also move into position so you can do that extra pass to guarantee the goals. So direct passing is just full meta. If you don't like it however, you can use something like forward runs, but I don't really like that because when you lose the ball you get counter attacked really easily. Now moving on to the width guys, I know this is very low, but I'm using this on 37. This is just to really go hand in hand with fast build up. Now the reason we do this is because with this lower width and fast build up, our players are going to be like closer together, meaning we can link up lots of quick short passes and it's very difficult for your opponent to stop, and it is a lot of fun to use, trust me on that one. You got to give it a go, but if this width is too low for you guys you can just up it, that's also fine. Moving on to the players in box guys, I like to have this on 6. This is so we can get some players into the box to create chances, but at the same time we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we get counter-attacked. As for the corners and the free kicks, we have these both on 1 because there is a corner kick routine that we use that requires both of them to be on 1. There is a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the players you want to use guys, in the 2 striker positions I like to go for a balance between the 2, where I have one more creative player on the left and then a more clinical finisher on the right. This is just so we have like a finisher creator dynamic where we're able to, you know, create more varied attacks. It's not something you have to copy if you don't want to, but you know, it just makes it a little bit easier to create more attacks in the team. Moving on to the cam guys, I suggest going for a nice technical player. This is somebody that is able to shoot, pass, dribble. You've got to use somebody that is nice and agile because they're like your main playmaker in the formation. You don't want to use an absolute truck, otherwise you're going to find it difficult to create any chances at all. Moving on to the right centre mid guys, I like to use a more box to box style midfielder. This is somebody that is going to attack and defend, so we're going to want somebody with nice and well-rounded stats, and if you can get it, a high work rate is super beneficial, so you get the maximum contribution in attack and defense. But again, don't worry too much if you can't get that high work rate, just go for a nice well-rounded player in this position. Now, moving on to the CDM, you're going to want to use a nice defensive player. This is somebody with very good defensive stats, and if you can get it, a medium-high work rate, super beneficial because you get the maximum contribution in defense and they're not too bothered about attacking. Now, moving on to the left centre mid, we actually like to use an attacking player. So you guys can use somebody like an Mbappe, an Alawaran, a Jairzinho, a Neymar, Messi, any of those types of out-and-out attackers, because this will make sense in the player instructions. One thing to note since this video and the last video is I've switched the side of the attacking player. So I used to have Pogba on the left and Chiesa on the right. Now I have Chiesa on the left and Pogba on the right. This is to do with the player instructions, and it allows us to create like an overload on the left, which will make sense. Moving on to the fullbacks, I like to go for a balance between the two, where I have Roberto Carlos, who's a bit more technical and gifted on the ball, so this is somebody that is going to contribute to the attack for us. And then we have Cafu, who's a bit more defensively solid but maybe lacks in that attacking ability. You guys don't have to copy this if you don't want, but it's just something I like to do. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, these just need to be as good and meta as you can get them, really. There's not much to say there. Moving on to the player instructions, guys. On the left striker, the more creative player, we have him on stay, central and mixed attack. Now, the reason we do this is because we don't want him drifting off into those wider areas, so we have him on stay central, so he's always in the correct position. And because he's a more creative player, we have him on mixed attack, because with a creative player, for example, you don't always want them running in behind because you're not getting the most out of them. Sometimes you want them to sit a little bit deeper to bring out their creative ability, which is why mixed attack is better on a more creative player. If this was like a more clinical striker, for example, you could just put them on getting behind, but in my case I'd put him on mixed attack. Moving on to the right striker, where I use my actual finisher, I have him on stay central and getting behind. Stay central for the same reason as the left striker, where we don't want him drifting off into the wide areas, as we need him to be in the correct positions to pick up the ball and score those chances. And we also have this player on getting behind, so he's always making those runs to get in behind and get into the best areas to finish off those chances, because unlike Di Maria, who's creative, we need this guy to be in the right areas to finish off those chances. Now, moving on to the cam guys, I just have him on comeback on defense. Now, the reason I do this is because it makes this team defend in a 4-4-2 shape. The reason this is important is because the 4-1-2-1-2 by default is very narrow, so when you are defending, there's lots of gaps in those wide areas, which makes it very easy for your opponent to attack you. So you want to change the shape into a 4-4-2, so your midfield is a little bit wider and it's harder for your opponents to just run through you, basically. So comeback on defense means Jairzinho is going to come back to defend as a right midfielder in this 4-4-2 shape, so that is super important, guys. Now, moving on to the right centre mid, the more box-to-box style player, we have him on default settings and cover centre. So the reason we have him on default settings is because we don't want to restrict this player all that much, because he is a box-to-box player. The only important thing is cover centre, so he does defend as a right centre mid in the 4-4-2 shape. Moving on to the CDM guys, we have him on cut passing lanes, stay back while attacking, and cover centre. We have him on stay back because he's a defensive player, we don't need him to go forward. We have him on cut passing lanes, so he's always there to break up the play and win the ball back for us. And we have him on cover centre, so he does defend as a left centre mid in the 4-4-2 shape, so that's super important, guys. Now, on the left centre mid, the position where we use an actual attacker, we have him on get forward, get into the box, cross and cover wing. Get forward means he's going to fly forward because he is an attacking player. That is what we want from him. We have him on get into the box for cross because if we have him on balance crossing runs, he can be very static and won't really get involved. So get into the box for cross means he won't hesitate to get into the penalty area. And most importantly, we have him on cover wing, so he will defend as a left midfielder in the 4-4-2 shape. So the way this midfield is going to look in game when we are defending is Chiesa will be left midfielder, Jorginho left centre mid, Pogba right centre mid, and Jairzinho right mid. So that is why we do that. Moving on to the left back guys, I have him on balance, attack and overlap. This is because Roberto Carlos is my more attacking minded fullback. This means when we have the ball, Roberto Carlos is going to join the attack and make overlapping runs to add extra width. This is important because the 4-1-2-1-2 by default is quite narrow, so sometimes we need to add that wider option and it's super beneficial. Just to note, that is kind of why I changed Chiesa to the left and Pogba to the right, is so we can do like an overload on the left hand side, which makes it very very difficult for the opponent to stop. Moving on to the right back, my more defensive fullback, we have him on stay back while attacking and overlap. We have him on stay back while attacking because by default we want at least 3 defenders back, so we're as defensively solid as we can be while still having a competent attack. And we also have him on overlap, so if we do send him forward with L1, he will make the overlapping runs to add extra width instead of running narrow. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, these are on default settings, I don't touch them. But yeah guys, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-1-2-1-2. If you guys have enjoyed or found this useful, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.